Ooh. Oh, well. Well, all right, Morgan. Thank you so much for joining me.
Thanks, Dalton. I'm really excited to be here.
Oh, I'm excited to have you on. Hey, before we get into you though, I don't know. You're in Gary V's Discord and everything, right?
Yeah. Oh, yeah. Yeah.
Are you? I don't know. There are some people who are, and some people aren't. I'm just curious. Are you part of the book NFT launch?
Yes. I'm supposed to be getting, I think, like maybe 9 tokens, I think.
Nine, nine NFT tokens.
Yes. I bought a lot of
Whoa!
books.
You bought a lot of books.
Yeah.
I
I
didn't go that
regret
hard.
only getting.
I bought. I'm getting one.
Well, I
I'm
just
getting
like
one.
big time regretted getting only one V friend when I probably could have gotten a couple more.
That's
So I was like,
insane.
you know
You know,
what? I'm doing it. I'm going in. Same thing for
that's
V
good.
friends too next year. I'm just doing it.
That's good. I think oh yeah, cuz one he mentioned in his Discord that one of the big things for this next launch is if you have the book NFT or not.
Right.
So or at least he said it gives you like an advantage or something or I don't know. I watched the
Yeah.
video a little bit.
I guess it depends on the rules that they've set up within the game, and then the mechanism that you could potentially combine some of the tokens to give you like a better chance to get
Oh
VFriends too.
goodness.
It'll be pretty
He's going
cool.
crazy.
Yeah,
He's going crazy on this one, huh?
it's gonna
Good
be
for him
awesome.
though. Good for him. Holy cow. Well, I just wanted to mention that because before we had talked, I mean, obviously, I know you're a huge NFT artist. Um, I know you're huge into V friends and things like that. So I just wanted to pick your brain on that. But again, though, welcome. We're trying a new format. I talked to you about this. We're going to try to go long ways and see what happens on that. But Morgan, I know that you're in an NFT space. You talked to me. You're an electrical engineer also, but you kind of gravitated towards the art NFT art collection. But why don't you tell us like what you do right now and everything you got going on?
Honestly, my plate right now is so incredibly full, but in a good way.
Yeah.
I I do have a day job as an electrical engineer. I've been practicing that full time for 6 going on 7 years. Next year we'll make 7 years. So still doing that gig. And like you mentioned, I've gotten super heavily involved into NFTs for myself to learn the
Yeah.
space, implement. I have my own projects going on actively. My long term goal is to really help artists and creatives of all types to understand the NFT space and how their skill set could be utilized within Web3. That's like my overarching goal. I've always had, I guess, a skill set of being able to explain the deep technical information in a way that anyone can understand, but also in a way that's not threatening or demeaning, you know?
Mm.
Um, so I think that's going to help a lot that I have an electrical engineering background to be able to dig into some of the coding and decipher what's really going on underneath the smart contracts within some of these projects, but also being able to translate that to an audience who could greatly benefit from Web3, being artists and
Mm.
creatives. So I'm excited.
Yeah, holy cow, there's so much to unpack with NFTs. And I've had a few people on. In fact, like probably, oh gosh, maybe even a year ago, I made a video on NFTs and what that meant for creators, specifically to a smart contract kind of
Mhm.
audience, right? How like podcasters, for example, could take advantage of NFTs and that NFT space. But so, like I said, and then I love the fact that you kind of put it in layman's terms in the for NFTs, right? Because that's also something that I tried to do in the video. And honestly, the NFT space has moved so quickly now. I could
Right.
probably delete that and update a new one. But I'm curious for you, what are some of the things that you talk with creatives about into getting into the NFT space?
The the main thing that I like to start off with is talking about the benefits that they can get long term out of not necessarily 100% transitioning into digital, but
Mhm.
even starting to play in that space. When when you're working in the traditional art world and hoping to get into a gallery so that they can sell your work on behalf of you,
Hmm.
or even just art shows where you might get one rotational spot and your work is shown in a gallery for a month. In
Yeah.
most of those situations, like you're looking at a commission fee. You're paying that gallery a 30 to 50% on average commission fee for them to sell your work.
Whoa. Wow. All the way up to 50, huh?
All the way up to 50. And
Dang, that's crazy.
I even want to say, depending on where you're at and how highbrow the place might be, it can even be greater than 50%. So,
Wow.
um, when you look at the fact that it's a one-time sale of your artwork in that
Yeah.
gallery, and the gallery or whatever venue that you might be working with who is helping sell your art for you, yes, it's a benefit, but having to mark up your work so much to where you can still make a profit after taking 50% out of the cut,
Hmm.
that can be a little bit tricky. So what's amazing in the world of Web3 is that most platforms that you're selling on are not going to charge you that much. It's maybe 10%,
Yeah. 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 Maybe 10. Yeah.
maybe 10 for most common marketplaces,
Hmm.
maybe even less than that. And
Yeah.
then the second benefit is long term. Anytime that someone resells your work, you get a kickback.
Yeah. Which is insane. That by itself is pretty gnarly when you talk about building into that smart contract layers and because now the law of first sale is done, right? So, I like cars is a good example. Like you buy a brand new car, and that car could generate, hundreds of thousands of dollars, but nothing, but they only get whatever profit margin, a dealer only gets whatever profit margin, or a maker only gets one profit margin it gets from the one time it's sold.
Right.
So that's a really cool thought to think about, just perpetually keeps paying you money. That would be a great definition of passive income. I'm not a huge fan of
Yes.
that term, but that would be one definition that's like, okay, yeah, that would be a sort of passive income kind of thing, where it's just
Right.
continually sells and makes money. So that's really cool.
Yeah. That's usually the intro to the conversation that at
Yeah.
least helps people perk their ears up of like, oh yeah, okay. Maybe that does sound a
Yeah.
little bit better than what I'm trying to do right now. Let me listen to what this actually is next.
Yeah. So how did you get into NFTs? I mean, you from an electrical engineering background, um, to Web3. That seems like a leap.
It definitely is a leap, and it's a completely different animal, and it's a completely different language, right? As far as the details go. But
Yeah.
I got I got into NFTs through Gary.
Okay.
Is
Yeah. I mean, that's the guy. If to learn an NFT from, oh my gosh, that would be the person to learn from for sure.
exactly. Yeah. And
Yeah.
when when I discovered Gary, which was maybe only 2 years ago, I
Mhm.
read the majority of his books and
Oh
would
yeah.
listen to them, like audiobooks and podcasts, and listening to him on YouTube. And that's when I just something clicked, and I was like, okay, this guy is really good at predicting the up and coming technology interfaces with human psychology and behavior.
Yeah.
And when I heard him talk about NFTs, I was like, all right, I need to figure this out. I need to get in there too.
Yeah. I remember hearing about. I heard about NFTs. There's a local company here called Artifact Studios, and I don't know if you're familiar with a lot of like the NFT, like I don't know, like news or whatever, but Artifacts is a Utah-based company. They just sold to Nike. So Nike just bought this crazy big NFT company. And I mean,
Mhm.
Artifacts was big. They had the clone stuff, they had the shoes. You
Yeah.
might have seen some of their work, but I first heard about them because we were rolling through some of this stuff, and I heard from one of my buddies so we're all in this little podcast community. I hear from one of my buddies, this guy named Chris Lee. He's one of the founders of Artifacts. Um, I'm like, dude, he's like, you got to check this out. Like, they're like, Dalton, you would love this NFT stuff. I'm like, well, I like crypto. And I kind of heard whiffs of it in like 2019, but I was like, I don't know how real that's going to be. Right. But then we hear this Artifacts, this Chris Lee and his team, and they did one for one of one shoes, NFT shoes. And if you bought the one of one shoe, you got like the actual physical shoe with it. And
oh, that's awesome.
it was crazy.
And it was like a limited edition that matched what
like one. I think it was just one NFT, one shoe.
Okay.
And they had a few, they had like a dozen of them or something. And man, those guys crushed it. And then, you hear Tory Lanez releases an album and an NFT album, makes like sells them out, makes like $1 million off of his albums in like an hour. And then that was it. That was all she wrote. Like, NFTs are to the moon. Then you got Gary V, Tom Bilyeu, and then obviously all the big ones, right? Bored Ape Yacht Club, Mutant Yacht Club. Gosh, wow. This is crazy. I just geek out. I'm like, this is insane. These guys it's finally like a little guy thing. Like, NFTs are like this little guy thing,
Yeah, I mean, that's what I think is so cool as far as the opportunities that are available, right?
Mm-hmm.
Sure, I guess all intents and purposes, the marketplaces are important to be able to be that interface to help get your work into people's hands without you having to know how to write a smart contract and do a website on your own. That's a benefit, right? That's like having Etsy to be able to sell your products. But what is so amazing for artists that are traditionally relying, and I would say even musicians as well, music artists.
Yeah. Music's a big one. Yeah.
When you're relying on having some type of an entity to discover you and put you on, or to be able to magically meet the right people or schmooze with the right people or pray that you're from the right background in order to get any traction or success, it's just so awesome to be able to authentically make connections with human beings in Web3 and NFTs. And if they like and support your work and they think you're cool, you don't need anybody's approval at all.
Right.
You just run with it, right?
Yeah. Right. I think it presents a really unique. So I follow another gentleman on Twitter. I think his name's Jay Croft, I think. And he's a photographer in California. And he just sells his pictures as NFTs. Right. And I'm like, that is such a good idea. Nobody can take it. It's you know what I mean? You perpetually make money from that. It's one of one usually, like it's only one picture. You know what I'm saying? And that's just a really cool idea, right? A great way for artists to make a little bit of dough off of what they got going on, which I think, is all you need to justify the NFT space for me. You know what I'm saying?
It is amazing. It's awesome.
It's like, dang, man. And it's bananas. But so you get into NFTs, you get into this space. How long does it take? I mean, because of Gary V, how long does it take you with the learning curve to learn what you're going to do and then how you're going to make it and things like that?
I had a balance of how much patience do I need versus how much do I need to execute while there's a huge opportunity. I had to balance both of those things at the same time, because on the one hand, I understood that I was completely new. I did not know pretty much anybody that was already into NFTs in my real life, in my circle of friends or acquaintances. Nobody even knew what they were. So I took a little bit of humility there and said, okay, sure, I've been successful within the traditional art world, but let me back up a second and just completely observe and be a collector and learn the ropes of how things work and listen to people's roadmaps and their pitches for their projects and make connections. I did that solely for 4 to 5 months, just kind of learning the ropes, seeing how
Yeah.
things works, what doesn't work.
Yeah.
And then I decided that I would open up my first one of one collection. So it's technically my Genesis collection.
Okay.
Um, and that those have done extremely well. I think that I've only had that collection open for, I don't know, but 4 to 6 weeks. And almost all of them have sold. I think there are only a few available right now.
Oh, wow.
So
And are you
I'm super
primarily on
grateful.
OpenSea?
Yes, I do have everything on OpenSea.
Okay.
I have I have long-term ambitions to do a larger scale project with a custom contract and all that kind of stuff, but baby steps. I'm
Yeah.
learning as I go.
Yeah, well, that's a great way to start. I mean, OpenSea is a great place. That's where I bought all my NFTs. But I've heard like Rarible. I'm not super bit like I know about NFTs. I believe in what they do. I
Mhm.
believe in the project. I believe in Web3. But I'm just like, man, for me as a creator, I like to see this part of the this part of the NFT world. I just like to watch it as well. So like I have a few NFTs. Gary's is coming, um, and then it's just fun. What was your first NFT? What was the first one you ever bought?
My very first NFT was my V friend,
Oh, oh, nice. Oh
which
man,
yes.
that's awesome.
What about
And I
yours?
remember when I remember when V Friends launched, and I was like, I wanted to get one. To be truth be told, at the time I was like, I just couldn't afford it at the time. But I was
Mhm.
like, but when he came around the second time with his book one, I was like, no way, I got to figure this out because
Yeah.
the V Friends one. So my first one was an artist from Oregon. His name is Show Deer, and I bought a little GIF 101 from him, and that was really
Cool.
cool. And then I had another like little misfit thing, and I just like dabbled in some projects. I like that a lot. But I remember like kicking myself right in the ass because I see V Friends and it's the floor for one of like the basic ones was like zero point 0.5 ETH. So like at the time, not a lot of money,
Right.
but I was like, you know what? I'll just, it's for VCon. I probably wasn't gonna fly out to the East Coast for VCon anyway. So I'm like, all right, I'll pass this one. And then you see them on OpenSea, and some of them are going for almost $100,000.
Yeah.
I was like, talk about a crazy return. You go
It's
from
like
like
big pain.
two, yeah, 2 grand to 100K. And he hasn't had V1 open for, it's only been like a couple months, right?
And we haven't even had the first VCon.
Not even the first VCon.
Right? Like
And
imagine
yeah,
what they're going to look like after everybody has stories of, "Oh my gosh,
crazy.
like I met people at VCon and we talked about
Yeah,
this, that, such another, and now we're going to do this partnership or now we're going to do this thing." Just imagine all the people who are going to make connections at VCon and then tell
it's
their
gonna be,
story, and everybody's going to be like, "Oh
yeah,
my god, I got to go to
it's
the
gonna,
next one."
yeah, it's gonna be bananas. So this time I was like, book NFT. I was like, screw it, get 12. Figure out the rest later. I was like, we can't miss this one because like and Gary V is very much is a pro, or excuse me, he's very cautionary on flipping NFTs, as you
Yeah.
should be. Like if you plan to flip NFTs, you're probably not in it for the right reason. But just as a justification in my head, it was like, look, even if you don't go to VCon, even if you get this book NFT and nothing comes of it, right? You have a Gary V NFT that's somebody's going to want to snatch for more than what you bought it for. It's like, all
Oh,
right.
at some point, absolutely.
Yeah, I was like,
100%.
all right. Or
Did you
just
get
head
any
out
Uno
to.
cards?
No, I didn't get his Uno cards. I was looking at him. No, I saw him, but I was like, all right. I was like, I want to see, you know what I mean? I'm just playing around in it. And I'm definitely more interested in the topic than I am in the playing field for sure. I'm a spectator. But with all that being said though, I'm like, you know what? Everybody who plays in there, everybody who participates is making history. And that's so
Mhm.
on my OpenSea account, it says like I'm just here for the comments and to watch history be made. You know what I'm saying? Because like
Yeah.
it's just cool, really cool to see all that go through.
Oh yeah,
Really cool.
in like I don't know, even 5-10 years from now,
Mm.
like when most people, when I would say the majority of the people in our circles in real life
Yeah.
start needing to use NFTs to conduct
For real
everyday normal
stuff.
activities or events, they're going to come to
Sometimes, yeah.
us and be like, "Hey, how do I
How do
do
you
this?
do
I
this?
need help." Like
How
we're
do
going
you
to
do
be
this?
the experts in their life.
Well, and I think that that is something that's going to be really cool, because the reason that I got into NFTs and crypto really hard was even before I knew about NFTs. I know NFTs have been around since about 2018, but I got into crypto because as like a change mechanism. Like I was really interested in the disruption that it would cause.
Yeah.
You know, because I knew about smart contracts a while ago. I knew about DeFi. I knew about crypto, and I was like, dude, crypto, that's it, man. Like this is has way more. People are like, this is money. I'm like, look, this is way more than money. Like this is crypto is, you know, because I was talking about applications for NFTs outside of just art, which I think is
Hmm.
all the stuff, you know what I mean, which I think is a great use case for it. Period. You could end there and it would change the world already. But
Sure.
I'm talking about like uh home titles, NFT on the NFTs. I'm talking like I think if you know, this would never happen because of the powers that be. But like, could you imagine voting on the blockchain?
I have
Decentralized
to.
voting?
Ooh, I have thought about that a lot. Yes, I have
Okay,
thought
then
about that.
you know what I'm saying?
I do have one curiosity. I don't know if you've thought about it yet.
Well, go ahead. Well, let's
Are you
talk
cool
then.
for a rabbit hole? Okay.
Yeah.
Um, if that were to happen, I have this question about my own NFTs too, like with my wallet.
Yeah.
Obviously, I'm not trying to be like a doomsday or anything, but like, what happens
Sure.
when I die? When I have kids and or family members that I want to inherit my assets that I have invested in, like,
Yeah.
how does that happen?
Yeah. You
Or
would
like
have to.
voting? If you died,
Yeah.
how did like what's the vetting process to make sure your like
Yeah.
I don't know
Yeah.
blockchain
You know what?
identity gets
I'm.
removed?
Well, what's cool about, so to kind of back up to answer your question, what's cool about that NFT space is, you know, like MetaMask. So if you lose your MetaMask password, you're done. That's it.
Right.
Right. It's over. There's no shot of getting it back because there's no security thing, there's no bank thing. It's done. So
There's
I
nobody
think
you
that
can
that
call and be
is
like, help me.
no, no, no. Mm-mm. And
Yeah.
I mean, I'm sure you could, but they'll answer it and be like, "You're screwed." Click. Make another one,
Hmm.
right? To protect people's identity. So here's the other interesting part about NFTs. We're just still so young. Like it's 2021, almost 22. NFTs have been around since 2018, so it feels like a long time. But you imagine that, like we're in the terrible twos of NFTs right now. You know what I'm saying? And
Yeah.
we got a lot to learn. I think to answer your first question though, like what happens when you die, you could probably do that in like a will or a trust or something like that. You could probably leave your password around and then be like, okay, here you go.
Hmm.
But like, what if you die? And how do they? I'm
Right.
sure, but okay. But here's what you do then. This is what I would think. You put some kind of birth certificate, death certificate on the blockchain. That is one of the things I was thinking of. Okay, because this is and I'm just going to go down the rabbit hole again. You talk
Yes.
about
Yes.
let's talk about the unsheltered and the homeless. Okay, one of the big reasons people have a hard time getting out of this homelessness, right? So you need three things to get an apartment or a job. You need a social security card, you need a pass or like or a birth certificate or an
Hmm.
ID. And you're in this and our government is so inefficient that you're in this feedback loop from hell to get any one of them. Like if you want your birth certificate, you have to have an ID or your social security card. To get your social security card, you need an ID or your birth certificate. And to get an ID, you need your birth certificate and a social security card and a place to live, right?
Yeah.
So it's like this crazy feedback loop. But what if we started putting birth certificates on the blockchain and then it's incredibly easy to figure this out, right? There's no losing it in the system. There's no
Yeah.
um, it's easily verifiable, right?
Yeah.
I
It
guess the only
seems as if there's no falsification.
Yeah, you would be, well, yeah. I mean, you got a one of one. It's your birth certificate.
Hmm.
Nobody can duplicate it. You start to decrease identity theft right off the bat.
Yeah.
How logistics of that? I don't know. The NFT world is pretty young, but there's just way. So I got into crypto and DeFi and these things because I was like, dude, this is way more than just art. If that's not a good enough reason for you, I mean, there's way more. You can start putting everything on this blockchain, and
It's amazing.
I was
Yeah.
like, that's why I'm doing. And I believe that Gary Vee said this in a at a conference or something. He was like, and he kind of got a little doomsday. He was like, if you guys really understood crypto, and I'm paraphrasing the quote, but he's like, if you really understood this NFT thing, he's like, this is the stuff that starts World War III, because we don't need anybody anymore. We don't need banks. We don't need you know middlemen. We don't need national banks anymore. We don't need title companies.
Yeah.
It's me and you. Like, we can figure it out, and we can smart contract it, you and me. We don't need anything. We
Well,
don't need attorneys.
just like I was explaining earlier, how
Yeah.
if an artist wants to put out their work directly to
Yeah.
someone who
Right.
is
Right.
interested in purchasing it, you cut out the middleman. So it's cutting out the
Right.
middleman in all of these different industries and lines of work, obviously. And yes, I can see how people would be very defensive about that in
Well, and
relation to if that's their job,
yeah, yeah, yeah.
right?
Well, go
Like
ahead. Yeah,
they're not going to
I
be
was gonna
excited
say
about that.
finish. Yeah. Well, and think about it. My thing is like, what builds wealth in any country? Ownership. That's what builds wealth. Like, own your home, own your cars,
Mhm.
own your material, own your copyrights, like ownership. That's why we're going through a huge thing in the music industry with especially like hip hop, for example, or like Taylor Swift, perfect example. She just released that album where it's like Taylor's version, and they're
Yes.
all the same songs, right? But when she left that last record label, they said, "Screw you, we own it." And ownership is scary for the powers that be.
Right.
That's my thing. Is
Hmm.
like, NFTs allow you to own, like, releasing music on the blockchain. You own it. Good luck grabbing it, bro, because it ain't
I
happening.
I forget exactly the name of the talk, but I believe it was a TED talk that I watched
Okay.
last month. It was older. This was probably
Okay.
from 4 to 5 years ago or so. But I thought
Okay.
it was so interesting because, like you said about proof of ownership, they were explaining how in some countries that don't have a very solidified system of documenting titles and deeds and
Hmm.
the transmission of where ownership goes, it's
Hmm.
very common that there might be a family who is completely set up with their home and everything on a plot of land with the understanding or the handshake that they
Yeah.
that they own it, but then someone else comes in and they say, but wait, no, I own this land. Uh, no, no, I own it. Well, who says who owns it? And
Right.
there's like this dispute that happens, and sometimes people get kicked out or off of the property that they believed that they owned, or that they maybe even potentially paid for, but didn't have proof that they
Yeah.
owned.
There's no proof. Right.
So that could be very beneficial to those communities and the people who live
Yeah.
there
Yeah.
to be able to substantially prove to anybody, yes, like I own this asset or I own this land.
Right.
This
This
is
is
mine.
mine. Yeah. And that's so obviously, right, logistically, you got to figure this out. And NFTs are really young, like I mentioned before, but yeah, you're talking about huge implications for people
Yeah.
to, like, I mean, like, that's like ownership. You're your own person, right? And so obviously you got to work out some of the kinks in the hose. um but man, oh man, that's why I got into NFTs. I was like, all the artists cool. Gary's sick. Tom Billy's legit. Like, all these guys are really cool in the space. But when you can verify voting, like, that's the biggest thing for me. I don't know.
Mhm.
Look, I can get, 10 years ago they were like, don't talk to strangers, and today I can order a ride on my phone and ride with a stranger and know that I'm safe relatively,
Yeah.
right? The fact that I can order McDonald's at 1 o'clock in the morning on my phone, and right after I just get done buying a $1.5 million home on my phone, right? The fact that I can do all this from my phone and we can't vote is
That is kind of
banana.
ridiculous. Yeah.
It's
That's
banana.
pretty
Like, I
ridiculous.
don't know. I don't get political. Like, I don't know about all this mail-in ballot shit. I don't care, and I don't really don't care about it. But
Yeah.
it's 2022.
It seems
We,
antiquated anyway.
well, yeah, that's
To
why I
try
wrote to
to
my
force
yeah.
that to work is seems very antiquated.
It's well, and no matter what you think, this is my thought process. Is like it's 2022, and you're telling me that in order to have my voice being heard in 2022, I have to stand in a line for 5 hours to write with a pencil, and paper. What? To
Yeah.
me, that's crazy. To me, that's just bananas. And I don't know.
Versus a
And all
quick
my
little MetaMask sign. Done.
yeah, right. And it's your signature. It's verifiable on the blockchain. Nobody can change it. Right. I watched a YouTube video. I did some research once, and I asked a question like, "What would it take to hack the blockchain?" And they were
Yeah.
like, "Look, you can do it, but it wouldn't last very long. It might last like 5 minutes before somebody found it and had to reverse, and it would be a really quick catch and a really quick fix." And I was like, "All right, dude, that's it. That's what you can do. There's no faking it. There's no making up a blockchain because it's impossible,
Yeah.
because it's back to the power. It's decentralized. Like, it's not anyway. I don't know. I just get kind of, my Republican friends hate me for it. My Democrat friends hate me for it. I'm neither, to be candid. Because I find both sides. The truth is in the middle, right?
I feel like
Um,
everything is gray. Everything in life is gray.
yeah. Well, I
It
mean,
might
yeah.
be a little bit
I,
darker
I
gray
agree.
or a little bit lighter gray, but it's gray.
I
Unless
agree with you.
unless you die. That's the only thing that's black and white. I am sorry. That's about it, man.
Yeah,
I'm telling
yeah.
you.
I agree with you. No, and I totally agree with you. For me, it's like, yeah, and yeah, it's bananas. But it's a really cool thought. It's a really cool whole project, and we're really watching history with NFTs because
Yeah.
it just boils down to like people are getting ownership, and that's really new for some people. So you mentioned that you were watching kind of the NFT community for 4 or 5 months.
Yeah.
Um, what surprised you about the NFT community specifically when you were watching that all go down?
The biggest thing that struck me as odd were the the types of roadmaps that I saw.
Ooh, tell me more.
Yes. It was very often that I would look at roadmaps and then like step 3 in the roadmap is that they're giving a Tesla to one of their token owners and they're gonna like do a random select. I saw that on a lot of roadmaps. And I was like,
Wow.
that's really
Like
odd.
like NFT giveaway kind of thing.
Yeah, that they would literally like just give away a Tesla to somebody who owned their NFT to
That's
one
crazy.
owner. And I was like, why is this a thing? Like what is that about? And at first I had a little bit of, oh my gosh, I don't think that I would ever be able to sell enough NFTs to where I can literally pay for someone else to have a Tesla. I don't even know if I could pay for myself to have a Tesla with how many NFTs I could sell. And I'm thinking, how how could that ever be possible? Why does
Yeah.
that need to be within the benchmark of success? And then I took a step back and I was like, whoa, whoa, whoa. Okay, let's come back to reality. I'm never going to run an NFT project that is going to be based on, hey, I want you to buy this thing so that you can be put in another raffle for this other shiny object thing just to pump everybody's bags and pump my bags. And then I drive off in my freaking Lambo from the money I made from this project. It finally clicked. That's what was happening. It was
Yeah.
just driving hype rather than actually, you know, giving back to a cause or
Yeah.
spreading an important message to the world or helping serve
Right.
people in need or helping people learn and giving people resources. There are so many
Yeah.
other things that you could actually be doing from the back end of your NFT project as far as what you earn from that.
Yeah.
And it does not have to include some kind of ridiculous roadmap giveaway, or even, let's just say, a non-executable roadmap. I saw a lot of audacious roadmaps, and I was like, what is this?
Yeah.
Do you really think you're going to achieve all that in a year? Like, that's silly.
Yeah. Well, you know what's funny? I heard Tom Billieu talking about this on a podcast. It might have been the Lucky Trader podcast from my good friend of mine, Danny Miranda. He's got a good NFT podcast. I don't know if you know who he is, but definitely someone to look up. And Tom Billieu was talking about how, and Gary Vee said this too, but how a lot of NFT projects are going to fail. Number one, because they're just going for money. They wanted to be get rich quick. And Tom Billieu said it was because they didn't know how to run a business. And I think it's a little bit of both, but I really side with Gary on the fact that, like, you know, and when I was talking to people about the NFT community, I put this in my video, that people like the NFT community can smell BS. And that's why I haven't gotten involved in a lot of projects like Gary Vee's and Tom Billieu's projects and Bored Ape Yacht Club and Artifacts. Like, these projects are so successful because they really put the customer, like, they put the token holder first. They brought an insane amount of value, and they created a community. Like, these one-off, like the ones you're talking about, these one-off projects are like, it's going to die real quick because you're not building a community, and you don't know, and you're in it for the money.
Yeah. And presenting your project in a way that attracts people who also are only interested in money.
Right.
Now, sure, you might real quick, but like, that's not necessarily sustainable.
Flash in the pan. Yep.
And then the minute that those floor boys see the numbers kind of they're out, man. And then they're on to the next thing.
Yeah, which is crazy. Yeah, which is really sad. And that's kind of why, I mean, truth be told, like, you know, I'm always 100 with people. I'm as 100 as I can be. And so, truth be told, a lot of these projects I just don't have the money to pay for. But another reason I kind of like to just stay in the shadows is because I really want to see the day when the NFT application, that smart contract application, becomes available. Like, and there's a really good use case for it in education. So I think NFTs could disrupt the education space quite a bit. I think that it could disrupt.
In what way?
Yeah, that's a great question. So the NFT space, I really feel like, is going to open a lot of opportunities for jobs, and specifically in the learning space, being able to present education in a different way. Like, I'm not making a lot of sense because I don't have it all built out in my head, but I'm passionate about a few things in life, and one of them is disrupting education. Because, like, okay, I have these thoughts in my head that I'm like, in 10 years, what are we going to look back on today? So, you know, in 2034, what are we going to look back on in 2022 and be like, you guys were dumb, right? And I think one of them is we put kids in classrooms for 8 hours a day, sitting on their butts, learning from somebody talking at them, right? And I'm not saying that teachers are bad, and I'm not saying that any of that, right? I have tons of respect for teachers. I understand the dynamic of underpaid, overworked, bad system. I get all of that. But that's a crazy thought. And so I don't know how yet. But I just have this little itch in the back of my head that's like, it's going to be able to like disrupt that space somehow. I don't know. Maybe I'm crazy. Maybe I'm high, but
no, if I were a betting woman, I would bet that the NFTs are going to genuinely cause disruption in every industry. And the timeline of that is probably going to vary. Art was easy.
Yes.
And music is following very quickly behind that as easy to apply. There's not a whole lot of extra hoops that you have to jump through and all that kind of stuff. The education industry, that might take a bit longer because of all of the red tape,
regulation
that you have to go through in order to achieve that. But I mean, that doesn't mean that we should accept everything as it currently is. Just because
Yeah,
it's different,
yeah.
right?
And like, and I could be blowing smoke too. Somebody listen to this, be like, dude, you're high, bro. There's no way, right? And that's totally fine. Like, I'm cool with being wrong, but I just think that as we start to solidify the art and the music scene with NFTs, we're going to learn a lot about how
Mhm.
this is going to work and how we can, and it's going to solidify it. So I'm really grateful that it's in the art and music space right now because people are happy, they're making money, they're getting
Yeah,
ownership, and we get to work out all the fluff in between. You know what I'm saying?
it's
But
awesome.
because there's going to be a lot that and I'm also, I say this to, like, when I talk to like digital marketers and things like that. I go, look, I know what I'm talking about something. I want my website to do this or something like that. And I go, bro, and I know fully well that I'm saying this stuff and I have no clue what I'm talking about. So just tell me, like, Dalton, Dalton, that's stupid. You can't do that. And I'll be like, all right, you win.
Or like, when am I being unrealistic?
Yeah. Yeah.
I
Look,
know
I
what you
know,
mean.
I know. Yeah. I know I'm not smart, man. You just need to tell me and we'll figure it out. So, but it's fun. And I really thought it was cool. All of your experience in the NFT space, all of your knowledge in it. I mean, what's the biggest thing that you've learned from being in the NFT, especially as an artist, as a person who's actually creating and pushing out creativity and content?
The biggest thing that I've learned is something that I think I've already known, but
Hmm.
this helped put all of the pieces together for me.
Yeah.
Communication is the number one thing, no matter what you want to do.
Yeah.
Communication is so important. And the reason why I say that is, one, NFTs that people own, they own for a reason. That is because, one, it communicates to them something that they relate to. Two, their ownership of that asset communicates a part of who they are to the rest of the world. So, communication and identity ties everything together.
Hmm.
Period. That NFTs really helped solidify that message in my mind. That's something that has probably always been there, just a little bit dormant, that I didn't tie the pieces together
Yeah.
until just now. But yeah, that is the number one thing, that people always want to communicate something about themselves. And when you can tap into that, when you're planning a project or thinking of ideas for a project,
Yeah.
it's
Yeah.
very tempting as an artist to think about yourself and think about, what do I want to tell the world? What's important about my life? What's important about
Right.
me?
Right.
But you're not creating art for yourself. This is very different than what most of the art world tells you. Okay, this is very different. This
Yeah.
is like my big
Okay.
my big
Your
hot
hot
take on
take.
art.
Yeah.
But uh, if you were an artist who wants to make money off of your work
Uh-huh.
and also wants to make a difference in people's lives, it's not about you. It's about
Right.
the people you're serving. Just like
Right.
any business, it is about your
Hmm.
customer. It is about the people you're serving, and being able to help them communicate what is important to them,
Yeah.
communicate to their soul. And that's what's at the middle of everything.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, I teach the same thing, like when I'm talking about sales. I'm a sales coach and a sales trainer. And my big thing with that as well is like, it's the cliche, like, you have two ears and one mouth, so you should listen twice as much as you talk, right?
Exactly.
I try to say that a little differently because I hate cliches, but it's true though. But you know why I
It's
hate
true.
cliches? Because they're accurate. Well, and they're 100% true, but people brush over them, so you got to like force that lesson in a little differently. But
Yeah.
absolutely, and that's what makes a successful NFT project and
Right.
anything, right? Is like, do you put the community first? Are you building a place where people want to stay?
Mhm.
And are you building something that it doesn't have to last forever, but the relationships that are built in that community should, for sure,
Yes.
last forever. So,
Mhm.
um, oh, absolutely. And you're talking, and you've got a lot there, right? And I like what you said about that too. How NFTs really, and this is something that's pretty beautiful about this space too that you mentioned about how NFTs and this gave kind of like this creativity back to the artist. Like I can be creative and not hide behind something, or not be, or share it with the world and not be afraid. Oh, excuse me. And not be afraid to share it because somebody's going to take it or somebody's going to copy. Like now, there's none of that.
Right.
You know what I'm saying? I released
Mhm.
it as an NFT, so even if you take a screenshot of it, like we know it's not yours,
Yep.
right? Can't be.
Exactly.
So, whew, that's awesome. But Morgan, I really appreciate, all of your insight on that for sure. I love that. And there was another thing you wanted to talk about that I want to dive into. Maybe we can wrap it
Yeah.
up with this. But mindset, you talk about so you wanted to bring one of those things up. So I'm curious how you view mindset, how you keep your mindset strong, especially when it comes to like being a creative in the NFT world.
I I was first introduced to what the idea of mindset was,
Okay.
maybe about 2 years ago, and
Okay.
so it is very relatively new, I guess you could say, to my vocabulary. But
Sure.
what's so interesting is that I realized through that revelation of me learning what is mindset, what does that mean, how can I apply that to my life, what's
Hmm.
important about this. I realized that I had a huge problem with victim mentality for
Mm.
the large majority of my life, even into my adult life, and that obviously bled over into my my confidence, my amount of confidence as an artist, and
Hmm.
even my potential belief of, do I think that I could ever make it? Do I think that I could ever be successful?
Yeah.
If if I'm just telling myself these negative things all the time, like, "Oh, Morgan, you weren't born into money. You don't know the right people in the art world." Uh, Even telling myself things like, you could never make money as an artist. Why are you
Mm.
so unrealistic? Who are you to da 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 da?" Being introduced to mindset and that whole concept completely transformed me as a human being in the
Yeah.
best way. I needed that so much.
I can only imagine, and it's a cool thing. Like when people, and I said this a lot. I say one of my favorite things is like, and I don't remember where I heard it. So I'm definitely not coining this because when you steal from one person, it's plagiarism. But if you steal from 10, it's called research. So this is from my research. Right? But it's that excuses. The worst part about excuses is that they're real and they're valid, right? Like, because I'm in a similar position as you. Grew up one of the poorest counties in Iowa. Um, you know, Nobody was, the highest was like, maybe a lawyer or a doctor, and even then maybe they were
Yeah.
just middle class. Like, but most of us were at or below the poverty line and lower middle class.
Mhm.
And so yeah, you like was a little farm boy from Iowa got to do, except we'll go work in a factory his whole life, get laid off in the winter from his construction job, go head over here,
Mhm.
Um, and yeah, and you know what I learned is that they're all true. Yep, you did have a crappy childhood, you did grow up poor, but you don't have to keep doing that, right?
Yes.
Like it sucks because it's real, but
Mhm.
you can change, and it's difficult, but you can.
Yeah.
And that's a cool part about mindset. But tell me about your journey. Tell me about like how was it for you, because it's hard, right, to be like to realize, to maybe have some self-awareness that you are in a victim mentality. And by the way, like I want to cater to kind of both sides, because I know that there's some real things that go on in people's lives.
Mhm.
But for you, what was it like coming out of that? Did you have to come to grips with a lot of things? Was it difficult?
It it wasn't difficult per se,
Okay.
because I had already been through the difficult part.
Okay.
Most people who have gone through extremely hurtful or hard things in their life, if you're listening right now, I'm here to tell you that you've already gone through the hard shit. You've done it. You can do this. You can do the mental work to get yourself to the other side of that hump. You are not
Yeah.
obligated to stay in that dark place just because something bad happened to you.
Hmm.
Obviously to spare from all of the details.
Sure. 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 Yeah. I mean, share as much or as little as you feel comfortable with. No worries here.
But yeah, to spare some of the details. In college, I had a very very unsolicited sexual experience
Mm,
that kind of broke me open.
yeah.
And it also didn't help that that was my first ever sexual experience, so that was pretty awful. Um,
That's so hard. Oh
and
my
and
goodness.
it kind of broke my identity as a person. I grew up in uh, very deep Christian values and held that as a part of who I am. Right? I mean, obviously, it's still a part
Mm,
of who I am, but in that
yeah.
moment, I was like, oh my gosh, who am I? What am I? I'm broken. Nobody's ever going to want me. I'm useless. I'm terrible. Da, 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 da. I went through that whole thing.
Mm,
My most wonderful, amazing angel of a mom who is very intuitive could tell what was going on. And she helped me realize, obviously not just a terrible thing that happened, but also that she helped me realize that I had been emotionally abused. And
mm,
I was like, oh my gosh, now so many things make sense. And this is just like crazy to me. I was so broken, or
mhm,
excuse me, I felt so broken to the point where I could not even look at people in the eyes anymore, which is odd
mhm.
for me because I'm a very outspoken, goofy, bubbly, confident person. And I would say maybe a year after that, my mom died.
Oh,
They're
jeez.
literally my best friend, right? And
Yeah.
I I don't share any of this to get
Mhm,
pity. I share this only for context
mhm,
because you know I everybody has their own dark places in life, and that is kind of part of our human experience.
mhm,
But I used that as an excuse almost to wallow and to be pitiful and to make other people feel sorry for me. I did
mhm,
that for years. I felt sorry for myself. And I realized one day that that wasn't working for me. I was depressed. I had anxiety. I was like almost having anxiety attacks. And
mhm.
I, I did medication for about a year and that helped me a little bit, but I still would barely get out of bed to do anything. Discovering mindset was the biggest transformation in my life, in my mental health, in my emotional regulation, and everything.
Mhm.
It changed
Wow.
everything for my life.
Well, first, thank you for sharing that story. Like I talk with a lot of people, and and it's a beautiful experience, and I'm so thank you, and that's, I mean, what an awesome story, because it does. So for you, like, you discover mindset. What was the first thing you learned? Like, how did you discover? How did you stumble upon it?
I think I stumbled upon that idea through Jordan
Okay.
Peterson videos.
Oh, no way.
I just love
That's
him.
awesome.
I I found
He's
him
great.
randomly on
Okay.
my YouTube recommendations, and I listened to one of his videos, and I was like, wow, this guy, he he gets me. He gets
Hmm.
that life sucks and sometimes things are terrible.
Hmm.
I'm like, okay, like he can kind of relate to what I'm going through here. Well, I'll listen to him some
Yeah.
more. And I went down the
Yeah.
Jordan Peterson rabbit hole. And then that branched off into like 5 other different rabbit holes of learning about amazing people who are, very brilliant and can help you overcome a lot of the shitty stuff in your life. That
Yeah.
ended up leading me to Gary. It's just like this crazy YouTube, like
YouTube's
this
powerful.
crazy YouTube rabbit hole that got me into all of these amazing discoveries in my life. Um, so I would say the the first the first tool, I guess, that I got introduced to within the realm of mindset was being able to reframe. And
Yeah.
that is definitely my
Powerful.
favorite tool. Uh-huh.
Yeah, powerful. Wow. I like that reframe. I learned about that. I didn't, it wasn't called reframe when I learned about it, but you
Hmm.
kind of connect the dots. Mine was, but just about stories. And I heard it in that it's a Buddhist, kind of way of thinking of like, if you get shot with an arrow, there's two stories that you tell yourself. You tell yourself what really happened. You can tell yourself what really happened, or you can tell yourself a story about why you got shot with the arrow, right? And it's like
Ah.
because getting shot with an arrow hurts, like that's very painful.
Hmm.
But pain is getting shot with an arrow, and suffering is telling yourself why you got shot with an arrow,
Yes.
right? And
Yeah.
that's great. And then you learn about this. You learn about what is she's a wonderful Brene Brown.
Yes.
Um,
Oh, she's amazing.
Brene Brown's amazing, right? And she tells you that, the story I'm telling myself is because the story we tell ourselves is always worse than the reality. And that's why, well, and to bring you back to the point, right? That's why communication is so important because the
Hmm.
story I'm telling myself is always worse than the reality. And if we get to the reality, we can deal with it, right? It's really hard to
Hmm.
deal with, and I say
Yeah. We.
story, not in like a fiction way, but you know what I'm saying? Like we tend to maybe catastrophize things like that,
Hmm.
right?
I mean, even the most simple stuff for everybody listening. I'm sure you've done this before. I'm sure you've done this before where you had one task that you needed to do. Something as simple as I need to wash my dishes. I need to I
Yeah.
need to clean my I need to clean my room. I need to clean the
Yeah.
bathroom. I need to take out the trash. And then you go through this whole excuse party of like, oh, that's going to take too long. Or you come
Right.
up with a list of 5 other things that you need to do. Or you
Yeah.
tell yourself all the excuses of why you don't need to do that right now. Or you
Yeah.
even blame your his significant other for not already doing it. Right? It's like,
Yes.
well,
Yeah.
why
Of
you
course.
have to
Of
do it?
course.
They should have done it already.
Yeah. Of course.
That's what we're talking about when we say telling yourself stories. You just
Right. 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 Right.
you you just take what is potentially reality, and then you add layers on top of that, just in your
Yeah.
own mind, where you completely change your perception of what's going on, and and then
Yeah.
you make some very simple task that could be 5 minutes turn into something that you expect is going to take an hour, or you procrastinate for 3 days.
Hey, and you know what's so funny about that? I totally, and that's so part of it is what I like teaching people about if I'm doing like a business thing, right? It's like just start. You know what I mean?
Hmm.
It's like just start. Like it's gonna be, it's gonna be
Yeah,
crappy the first time. It's gonna be dumb, but anyway, go ahead. Go ahead. Sorry.
before I really knew what mindset was or anything like that, I actually did a challenge for myself. This was
Okay.
probably, it was before, no, it was during COVID. Okay, this was maybe beginning of 2020. I know. Oh, I just hate that our lives are going to be framed around, was it pre or post COVID? Like,
Pre or
that's
post?
going
Well, that's
to
our
be the new, the new
that is the
BC.
new normal. We were talking about the new normal. That's it right there. Was it pre or post COVID?
Um,
Yeah, you're right. Okay, but go ahead.
but anyway,
Yeah.
I came up with a mental toughness challenge for myself,
Oh wow.
and
Okay.
I made myself do small tasks every day to
Okay.
increase my mental toughness and my mental capacity to handle pretty much anything that would come out at me during the day, from doing these smaller activities. So in the morning, I would wake up and I would take a 5-minute cold shower, like
Tough.
that.
Cold
That
showers
oh
are worse than ice baths.
the it it was kind of rough, but like in comparison to the other stuff you go through that day, if that's the first thing you did when you woke up, you're like, I can do anything, whatever. But the
For
first
real
thing,
though.
I had to wake up on my alarm first time it rang, period. Get out of bed, go straight to the 5-minute cold shower, and then I would not eat until I had been legitimately hungry for at least 15 minutes and drank a glass of water before I ate. I had to wait 15 minutes and drink a full glass of water. And then I would make sure that my dishes were always in the sink, or my dishes were
Mm.
always in the dishwasher and or clean before I went to sleep every day. If I broke any of those rules, then I had to start over from day one. And I did it for a consecutive 30 days.
Wow. All right. So what'd you learn? Like tell me the awesome, all the good, bad, and the ugly, I guess.
Well, I learned that most things, most small things like doing the dishes or putting your clothes where they belong or just tidying up the house, making my bed, all those small
Yeah.
things I put on my checklist to do each day.
Mm-hmm.
I would that's when it really clicked for me that perspective is everything, because when I knew that
Yeah.
I needed to accomplish those things, I did them as quickly as I could, and they weren't a big deal, and I got in the habit of it, and it was fun and
Yes.
it was so easy and simple. But if I did not have my mind on set on like, okay, I need to do these things before I go to sleep today, I would delay that and I would make it into something that was going to be 20 times more complicated. So that was what I took away, is
So
that most things are not nearly as complicated or scary as you think they are.
yeah. Well, that's so awesome. Most things aren't as complicated or as scary as you think they are. And that's 100% true. I think what people also get hung up on is this fact that they're afraid to, it's called, I call it, I don't call it anything. I heard it called embrace the suck,
Yeah.
right? Like it's just going to suck. Like my first 30 podcast episodes, and by the way, I paid a professional editor to edit my first like 30 podcasts. I didn't listen to one of them, and I'd go back and listen to them. And it wasn't because my editors were sucky. It was because like I was sucky, and my guests were beautiful. My producer was great, but I wasn't good. But I was okay with, like, when you're okay with that. Like I got some crazy feedback when I started. Like, hey, you need to do this. You need to do this. Like maybe you shouldn't. Maybe this isn't for you, right? Or like
Yeah.
people would be like, hey, you sure do. Podcasting's great for you because you got a face for podcasting, right? Right. but but like but like all this crazy stuff, but it's all right because now now I'm however many long, and it's getting better every day, and you just have fun and just start. Like
Yeah.
it's okay that it sucks at the beginning. Your first podcast is going to suck. Your first business is probably going to fail.
Mhm.
Your first relationship might not turn out the best. Your first test, you're going to bomb, right? Like
Yeah.
just and by the way, I'd rather get it done sooner than later, you know what I'm saying? But
Oh, yes. Yes.
right.
Every time that you mentally are trying to avoid or delay the pain,
Hmm.
you are literally causing yourself more pain.
Yeah. Yeah.
That's all it
Just
is.
yeah, yeah. Right.
It's
Right,
so much
yeah.
easier to just peel the Band-Aid off instead of sitting there agonizing with your hand on it like, do I want to peel it off? Do I want to peel it off? Do I want to peel it off?
Yeah, what a great just get rid of it. Yeah,
Just
it'll
do
be
it.
fine. You'll be okay.
Okay, move on.
Yeah, and one of my favorite quotes there is just like, it's not going to kill you. You'll be all right. You're and what so I like to have this. So I love the stoic mindset. So I'm like very stoic in the way that I think. Um and with that comes this idea, this practice of like premeditatio malorum, which is like the premeditation of evils. So it's almost this counterintuitive approach to mindset where like I expect, like, so I'm in sales. So if I go into a sales conversation, I'm expecting them to say no to me. I'm expecting them to tell me that the price is too high, that they need to talk to their spouse, that they need to do these things. Because when they say it, I'm not surprised. Like, they're like, the price is too high. I go, okay, cool. I was actually expecting that. And sometimes I'll actually say that and kind of throw people off guard. They'll be like, hey, I think the price is too high. I'm like, yeah, I totally understand. Right. I figured you would say that. They're like, well, what do you mean? But then we can have a conversation and like skip all the games. Right. Like, okay, thank you for telling me that. Now we can move forward. Right. Because it's just like you said, though, right. It's easier to rip the Band-Aid off and deal with it than it is to slowly peel it off. So that's awesome that you got that that's a crazy 30-day challenge, by the way. You should put that in put that little package and do
I
it. Be a
should.
mindset coach. Package
Because
that up.
I have that as like the intro, and then I have like a more intense one for your second round.
Oh my goodness. We did but I learned this. Cold showers are harder to do than ice baths. Like, I've taken ice baths, right there. And 5 minutes is about the max that you is all you really need. Like, anything more than that is like, there's no real significant gains for an ice bath or a cold shower longer than 5 minutes, right? It's like increments at that point. And so you get the most of it when you do 5 minutes. But I've taken an ice bath where you go all the way up to your neck. And I've taken cold showers, and I would rather jump in an ice bath.
Have you ever done the alternating one where you go to the hot chamber and then you go to the cold and it's like temporary.
It's good for you.
Temporarily terrible, but it feels great. I don't know how to explain it.
Well, it's like 20 minutes in a sauna, right? And then 5 in an ice, and then you go back. So 20 and 5, because it's not long either. Like, you can, you know what I mean? Yeah, absolutely. So I don't know if you saw a comment, but we'll read that one. Miss Bentley Journey. Thank you, Morgan. I needed to hear that. It's just a matter of ripping off the Band-Aid and fast. There you go.
Yes, Love you can do it. Just do it quick before you can convince yourself.
That's right. It's a Mel Robbins. What is that? The 5-second rule of Mel Robbins.
Yeah.
I don't know if you. Yeah, it's a
very,
5, 4, 3,
very
2, 1,
similar
and. But it's great. Like, and some people, and by the way, like anybody, any kind of coach or like any kind of real teacher will tell, like I tell people all the time, like, if you're coming to me for sales, like, that's great. Like, obviously I'm going to teach you everything I can, but don't let me be the only one. Like, you should get your information from many different sources, because you're going to find out that your voice, you like this guy's voice for this thing, and you like this girl's voice for this thing. Right. And so you just kind of gather information. So it's really cool though. And I really appreciate your time, by the way. I've lost track of time. We're kind of over, but I'm grateful that you shared your experiences. I'm grateful that you talked to us all about NFTs, and really appreciate it. So real quick before we leave, where can people find your collections? How can they follow you and interact with you?
Okay, perfect. So if you're curious about NFTs, my upcoming collection, which I will tease that a little bit, is going to be coming next year, 2022. It has to deal with the power of fire, not just to destroy, but also as a ceremonious symbol of rebirth and rejuvenation and recreation. So that's going to be coming early in 2022. You can follow me on Twitter. It's at Morgan Tanner ETH. That's ETH, short for Ethereum. So Morgan Tanner ETH. And you can also follow me on Instagram at Morgan Tanner Art. that's where I have all my links for OpenSea. You can check out my NFTs that are available. Even look at physical prints if that's what you're into. So
Cool.
yeah.
All right. Well, thank you so much. I really appreciate your time. Thank you so much for being here.
Thank you, Dalton. It's been a pleasure.